My name is Tarmack, and this is your Game Industry News Wrap-Up for the week of October 7th, 2017. Our title story today comes from Telltale and the Batman series of games. After a bank robbery in the second episode of the Telltale series Batman game, an image is shown with a body lying on the floor in front of an open bank vault. Only the body in the image looks rather similar, and some would say identical, to a very well-known image of Russian ambassador Andrei Karlov, a man who was very publicly assassinated in December last year. It appears, though we don't have official confirmation, that someone at Telltale didn't quite do enough research into their Google Images search, or just thought nobody would notice. When asked for comment by Gamasutra, Telltale responded by saying, quote, "An update to the game has been submitted this morning that will be removing the image across all platforms. We regret this incident occurred, and we are taking appropriate action internally to ensure that we continue to maintain our high standards in production and quality assurance." End quote. I don't have a joke. That last line in the quote doesn't need a joke. On October 5th, Capcom put out a video officially announcing the Amazon-leaked Arcade Edition for Street Fighter V, which will release in January 2018. Arcade Edition includes all of the Season 1 and 2 characters, as well as an arcade mode and some other stuff. The new game modes will be free for existing owners of Street Fighter V. Personally, I'm pretty stoked for Capcom on this one. I mean, Street Fighter V released in February 2016, and the Arcade Edition is coming out in January 2018. Early access games don't normally get a final release that quickly. Assassin's Creed Origins is going to be the first game in the series to feature a difficulty setting. The game's director spoke with Assassin's Central, which really just sounds like a classy Assassin singles site, but in reality is a loosely branded spin-off of Games Radar, and gave a few details about how the difficulty would work. It's not quite to the point of turning combat off, though Origins does have a mode for that, geared towards educators wanting to use the Assassin's Creed landscape for historical lessons. The difficulty options relate a bit to stats, but also to how aggressive opponents will be when you're inevitably and almost entirely randomly cutting down people all over Egypt. No word on whether gamers playing on easy would be jumping into ball pits instead of bales of hay. Also, no word on whether it's just adding a hard mode because the game is already easier than beating Stephen Hawking in the 100-meter dash. Star Wars Battlefront 2, the new one, just had a beta launch which let a few cats out of the bag with regard to how the card system works in the game. The whole game is focused around allowing you to level up, but leveling classes is based around how many cards you have for a class. So if you just buy a bunch of cards, that leveling comes much quicker, allowing you to equip more cards at one time. Cards like the Boba Fett card, which makes him immune to damage when firing rockets in midair. That sounds like a balanced, fun experience designed to be enjoyable for a person who just spent full price in a game but can't afford to pay a lot more, doesn't it? Let me be serious for a moment here, folks. When you see pundits clamoring on about how we should be pushing against microtransactions, this is why. Business always tests where the line is. So if you say cosmetic is okay, they'll always try for just a little more. That's how business works. The reason we have these major games based entirely around a paid success architecture is because people didn't push back enough when it was just an irritant. Now it's here to stay, and that's kinda sad. The BlizzCon schedule was released 2 weeks ago, and the Diablo team was quick to post on the forums that there will be a Diablo space on the show floor, but they don't have anything to announce in relation to the Diablo franchise. I missed this story last week, but I wanted to comment on it because this is precisely how last year should have been handled, and it's good to see them adapt. But more importantly than that, this week we also got an update that Blizzard has spent the last 5 years developing a brand new technology in secret, and this week we got a glimpse of just what all of that work entailed and how it will benefit gamers going forward. In a beta change to the Battle.net client, we're going to see Discord-like groups, support for Discord-like offline messages, user avatars similar to how Discord does it, and a feature that was 5 years in the making, appear offline, just like Discord. Yes, thank you to the pedants in the audience. You'll note that the Discord comparison is for emphasis, not claiming that they invented or pioneered those features. Thank you very much. The developers of Hawken, which for those unaware was initially the much faster new IP attempt at taking a chunk out of the MechWarrior market, have announced that they will be shutting down the servers on January 2nd, 2018, and that all purchasable content is offline, effective immediately. I'd like to take this moment to say that Hawken was fun for about 6 months 5 years ago. What happened is that initially, It had a much higher mobility than something like MechWarrior, with fast mechs, really punishing combat that required crazy reflexes. That was until the developers tried to make it more like a traditional shooter and it lost all of its charm. And then of course came the monetization. Hawken is a lesson to developers to focus on what makes your product special. It's a lesson to marketers that sometimes you can ask too much of a customer. And it's a lesson to gamers that as time goes on, more and more games will become permanently unavailable. And a new feature for the pleasure of your auditory receptors, we're going to end on the uplifting game story of the week. All of that rambling about games becoming permanently unavailable, and this week we had quite the opposite happen, which is great news for gamers everywhere. Battlefront 2, the original sequel, we're talking 2005 Star Wars game, not this fancy pants use the same name new stuff, got its multiplayer servers turned back on somehow. Through a joint announcement on Steam and GOG, Battlefront 2 64-player battles have been re-enabled, and even better, they've got crossplay between Steam and GOG. Some gamers are reporting connection issues and lag, but whether that's due to poor hardware or too much demand for a 12-year-old game remains to be seen. Either way, as cloud servers become the norm, spinning up lower resource instances to support older games does become much more of a reality. The point of cloud services is that they use precisely what they need. So there's no requirement to shut down a giant server room if a game drops to 100 players or lower. Just spin down your cloud usage for that game. I personally have high hopes for game devs using this kind of model because it'll help mitigate the Hawken problem. Or they could just go back to including LAN and private server options because gamers should always be able to play the games that we buy. Your game releases for the week of October 8th to 14th are as follows. October 10th, we will see once and for all whether it's the microtransactions, the retcon Lord of the Rings lore, or the bad Australian orc actors that will turn gamers off of the title, or if it's just a good, fun time. Shadow of War builds on the legacy of Shadow of Mordor as a third-person action game where you play a ranger that can cast spells, roaming an open world filled with orcs and other nasties. From the look of things, it's got more of just about everything from the first in the franchise, so I'm sure it'll be fun either way. At least until the fourth act, which from reviews thus far, it seems that the grind gets pretty real right about then. Shadow of War is on PC, PS4, and Xbox One. It's really a wonder that Warner Bros. Doesn't send me review code. And on October 13th, we get the sequel third-person horror action game from Bethesda and Tango Gameworks for The Evil Within. Follow Detective Sebastian as he tries to save his daughter Lily from all kinds of horrific shenanigans. Now, I'm not a big horror genre fan. However, I will say that from what I've seen of the game from PAX and online thus far, it's not all cheap jump scares like most of the popular horror games out there have been for years and 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 years. It looks pretty good, but do remember that Bethesda doesn't give review code early enough to outlets for reviews to not be rushed. So wait a few days so that proper reviews are up before you decide whether or not to buy this one. The Evil Within 2, It Does Your Body Good, will be out on PS4, Xbox One, and PC. This has been your Game Industry News Wrap-Up for the week of October 7th, 2017. I'm going to be doing a proper channel update video over the next week or so, but just to give a heads up, a few things will be changing, hopefully for the better. And on Tuesday, I'm planning to get back into some live streaming with some Kill the Virtual Patrons XCOM 2 gameplay, so feel free to tune in around 6 p.m. MST, twitch.tv/Tarmack Gaming. My name is Tarmack. Thanks for watching.